Bonjour, I'm just about to go live to do our monthly Q&A. I'm just going live as we go on Instagram. Sorry about the echo. So we're live on YouTube. So thank you for joining me. Let me tidy up that screen. I can see they have some text on there. So today we are going to be doing our live Q&A. And basically, we're going to be. I'm going to be covering your questions. Let me hide this. Which one is this? I haven't done it for a little while, so let's hide this. There we go. So I'm going to be doing a live Q&As to answer your questions about moving to France, creating a business, freelancing in France, and running a business. So as you can see, I'm going to be looking the front for YouTube live and sideways. I'm also going to be watching at Instagram from time to time to see whether there are some questions coming up. And so basically, if you're coming live, just ask me any questions that you may have. If you are at the early stages, you're living in your home country, you want to move to France and thinking about freelancing, you might need a visa or carte de séjour. Or if you are in France or European citizen and you want to create your business, you have questions relating to your activity, or if you are in business and you have questions, then please just type them away and I will take them as we go along. So for those who don't know me, I'm Valerie Aston. I'm the founder of Start Business in France, and I help expatriates prepare, create, and manage their first business in France, their freelancing activity, so they can forget about the paperwork and the admin, feel more in control of their business, and then have more time to enjoy the new lifestyle in France. So to get started today, I'm going to be just turning on my iPad and take some of the questions that I have received. And don't hesitate, if you're watching live, then you can also ask your questions. So I'm going to be taking some of the questions that I have received either by email, on Instagram, or via YouTube. Just refreshing the screen on my iPad because it's hiding details for now. So let me see, almost there. Let me refresh this because it's got some strange text happening here. Otherwise, I'll have to do it by memory, which will be more tricky. Or let me do this. Let me switch. Hopefully, you can still see me. I'm going to switch to watch to have a look at my questions. So I have the first question from Roy. So Roy is an Indian student. He came to study in France. But he's moved back to India and now he's living in Canada where he's still studying, but he wants to come back to France and open a business. He wants to open a web development agency and he's going to go and apply for a visa profession libérale. So he's graduated, he's come home, but now he just wants to go for the visa profession libérale. And basically he's saying, I can see some references online of minimum income I need to generate. Sometimes he's talking about 21,000 euros, sometimes 18,000 euros. What is the right number I need to take into account in my business plan? So that's a good question. And basically, whenever you prepare a carte de séjour entrepreneur or a visa profession libérale, with your business plan, you have to do a financial projection. And basically, we want to show that with your business, you're going to be generating at least the minimum wage in France, which is called SMIC, SMIC. And basically, SMIC, we have two amounts. If we talk about the yearly amount, we have the gross amount, which is basically if you're an employee, is the amount that you see on the top of your payslip, salaire brut. And this amount in 2024 is 21,203 euros. And then we have what we call the net amount, which basically means you have a gross salary, you pay employees social charges, and then you have the net amount, which is paid to you. And on a yearly basis, this amount is 16,884 euros. So if you go and watch the replay on YouTube, they will add the number on the screen. So basically, if you're going for a visa profession libérale or if you're going for carte de séjour entrepreneur, you want to show that via a business, you're going to be generating at least that 18,700. So we kind of round it up to 17,000, but that's the money you're going to be taking out of your business. So whenever you look at your numbers, make sure you take your total sales, take off your social charges, your running expenses, so that your profit is about that. Your profit is about 18,000 euros to show that you can live from your activity. You're going to be self-sufficient. If you don't have that, then make sure you do show some savings. So that's why we have two numbers. Sometimes we have 21,000, which is gross, sometimes 16,000, which is net. If you go for a different type of visa, like Visa Talent, it will be a different amount. So always check compared to the visa that you're applying for, what is the minimum income that you have to generate from your business. And whenever you look at your business, if you go for macro entrepreneur, make sure you take off your social charges. If you go for SaaS or SASU, make sure you look at your net salary. So that's the first question from Roy. And Roy was super duper motivated. He's working on his business plan, putting it together to come back to France. The second question I had was from Krista. So Krista says, she's already in France. I'm here on a profession libérale visa, which expires in 2025. I'm trying to find out what information the French government looks at when I go to renew my visa. More specifically, do they need to see that the business has developed to a certain level financially? So I know there's quite a few questions about visas today. So that was Krista, and she sent that to me by email. So basically, Krista has had a visa profession libérale, which is for 1 year, and 1 year later, she has to renew the visa locally. So ideally, in the first year you've been here, when you came over, you said, this is my business, this is what I want to do, this is how much I'm going to be generating. So once you're here, what they want to see is that you have created your business, you have paid some social charges, you have paid your income tax, you have set up your health cover. So they want to see you fully integrated and you're generating some income. So basically, when you prepare your dossier for this, if you've done a business plan at a time, I would dig it out and do a summary of where you stand now, like a cover letter with a summary of where you stand now compared to this. If you're a macro entrepreneur, you can get an attestation fiscale from your URSSAF or auto-entrepreneur.ursaf account. So get that, the attestation fiscale, or copies of all your monthly or quarterly turnover declarations. If you filed, hopefully you have filed a French income tax form, you add a copy of that to show you declared and you're paying your income tax, and also get the attestation fiscale. So let me add, I don't know if I have this written, not the attestation fiscale, get the attestation de couverture santé. So basically, once you create your business, this is generating your health cover. And CPM, the body handling your health cover in France, is gonna give you an attestation to confirm that you have a health cover. So all of those you gather to take with you for the renewal, or for the visa renewal. And also you have you look at, okay, how much income have you generated? So we just saw earlier when we were talking about Roy, let me put it back on. Basically, the idea is that if you had a profession libérale, you want to generate a minimum wage in France, the SMIC, so at least around 17,000 euros of money you taken out of your business, not sales, but your profit. So we want to see, so if I say 16, 17,000, if you're a consultant profession libérale, that might be about 26,000 euros of sales. So how far off are you from those sales? If you're close to that, great. By using your URSSAF turnover declaration, you can show that. If you're much lower, then really in the cover letter where you have to renew your visa, you would justify why you're not that close and really list all the actions they're going to be taking in order to make sure that in the future you're going to be improving the situation. So you might go to a trading show, you might go to conferences, you might have a contract you've just signed up, and so on. So you want to put the emphasis on those new things you are doing to show that you're going to be reaching that future turnover. And also, if you didn't reach this, in that case, you really want to show that you still have some savings, a copy of bank accounts where you have money to show that you are still supporting yourself. But really, you want to sort of justify why you weren't as close as what you were expecting. But you know, it does happen that sometimes you're below because you've just been so busy, but you have to justify and then show that as much as possible you took all the actions to actually get some of the documents that they wanted. Hi, Luxessa Studios, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them on the live. So the next question that I had was from Selena. So Selena is in France. She So she moved to France. Okay, so Selena has a micro entrepreneur. She's registered it, and basically she's saying, I've moved to a new area, and I can no longer depend on the regular customers or guaranteed work I was doing in the past. My question is to you, as a micro entrepreneur, do I have to register as a business, or can I continue to operate as a micro entrepreneur? So there's a couple of things to cover or to unpack with Selena. First of all, she has an existing micro entrepreneur. There's two things which have changed. First of all, she has moved to a different area. So when you do move to a different area, what happens is that you have to be very careful. When you change address, you might have bought a house. Does it mean that you've actually moved to a new department in France? You know, like we have all the departments. For instance, in Normandy, the region is Normandy, La Normandie, and my department is 50, La Manche. Sometimes when you move from one department to another, there's an impact as to the URSSAF or impôt office you relate to. And if you move to a different region, it's like a completely different regional URSSAF office that you're relating to. So when you are moving, you have to remember that you will have to update your business details. And the central hub to do so is INPI. So if you move your business to a different location, or you start taking professional premises, or you bought a house in the same village, or you move to a different area, you want to make sure that you do update your business details. And you're going to be doing this by going onto the famous INPI website, so procedure.inpi.fr. And this is important because this is the central hub in order to register businesses, to update businesses, and to close businesses down. So you do the updates on INPI, and then INPI is going to inform URSSAF, impôt, and INSEE, which is the National Registry of Businesses. So for Selena, she wants to first of all update information so that it's passed on to URSSAF, impôt, and INSEE. The only body that won't be informed is CPM. For your health cover, just make a note for yourself that you will have to go and see and write to CPM or go onto your Amélie.fr account in order to show, to tell them that you have a new address, to make sure they keep sending you mail. So first thing for Selena is to update her address. And the second thing for which I wasn't quite sure is she might also want to update her business activity. She's saying that so far, so she's going to lose some of her customers because I think her sector was more like conciergerie services, cleaning, liaising with artisans. So when she moves to a different area, my question to her is more, are you completely changing your activity, or is it just that you have to build up your customer base again? If you're just building up your customer base, don't change, you just change the address, but not the activity code. And if you actually say, well, actually, my activity is changing, since I'm changing the address, I'm also going to be changing the activity, in that case, do so at the same time, which means you'll have to change both the APE code, the activity code, plus the address. Another thing that Selena mentioned as well when she sent me an email is that her current activity, she was actually struggling to find an insurance for the liability insurance because she had too many trades. When she meant to describe her activity, the accountant that helped her at the time told her to list many things, but she had like 5, 6, 7 different activities. And basically, when you have too many and you go and see an insurer, they don't want to take you on because to them it's too risky. If you are doing conciergerie services, cleaning services, marketing services, admin services, it's just too much. If they were to insure you for all of this, it would cost a fortune. So maybe if you are doing those changes, take the opportunity to also narrow down the activities that you were doing to focus more on what you really want to do or the things you managed to do in the past and you think you will be able to redevelop again. Another thing for Selena as well, and I think I've got another question on this later on, but be aware that whenever you make changes to your business with the INPI, as a non-French citizen, it's a bit of a nightmare because basically at the end, when you update a business, you have to prove your identity and you also have to electronically sign the summary of the changes. But it's just not signing it on PDF, it's to use a secure platform. And in France, they're using France Connect, which you can't have if you don't have a French, at least impôt account, or they're using the ID pass from La Poste for the post office called ID numeric, I think. And for an expat, it's very tricky. So for you to be able to validate that last change, you could use Cert Europe, which is a recognized electronic signature, and that does recognize foreign passports and so on. Or Trust Pro, usually that's the one I recommend. They do work. If you get stuck, then get in touch with me. That's one of the small services that I do when you really are stuck to manage to do those changes. So that was the question from Selena. Let me just check if I have some questions. The next question I had so was a question from Mathilde. So Mathilde has just recently registered her micro-entrepreneur, I think as, just have it up, I think she's a designer. And basically she said she just received the summary business information from INPI called the synthèse. She said, I can see my CREN number, not the CRET number. Where do I get this? And the second question is, one of my customers is asking for my VAT number. Can I convert? Or where can I find my VAT number? Can I just get it by adding my CREN number and adding FR and 10 digits? So first of all, when you get your business summary, you have something called synthèse INPI, synthèse validée, or your validated business summary. And on there, you find all your business details. So it's like a 4-page document, but you have your personal address, your business address, you have the business type you've chosen, you have your tax regime, whether or not you've opted for the VAT. So it's a really useful document to keep and to read, because for instance, to me, when I speak to someone and they're not really sure which are the tax options, by looking at this, we know whether they decided to pay on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, whether they VAT registered, whether they decided to pay the income tax at source or not. So for Mathilde, the CRET number is basically on page 4. And the difference between CRET and CREN is a 9-digit number referring to your business. CRET has an extra 5 digits at the end. It's referring to the specific location of where your business is. So for instance, let's say I'm here, start business in Les Pieux in La Manche, and next month I want to open a second office in Lille. The CREN will remain the same because it's still the same business, but the last 3 digits will be slightly different. One for my office here in La Manche and one for the office in Lille. So that's the difference between CREN. CRET 15, CREN 9. And usually when you do your invoices, you add your CRET number on. And the second part of the question from Mathilde was about the VAT number. So basically, Mathilde registered as a micro-entrepreneur. The default situation when you do register as a micro-entrepreneur is that you are not VAT registered, which means you don't charge VAT and you don't collect VAT. So when our customer says, oh, give me your VAT number, what she has to say is, well, actually, I'm not VAT registered. Therefore, I don't have a VAT number. And on our invoices, there would be a small mention that she'll have to add, which is called en franchise, like franchise, en franchise de TVA, and a specific article from the tax office to basically say she's not VAT registered. So that's what she would do. She would mention that and just to a customer confirm she's not VAT registered. In the future, she might, because basically, VAT threshold as somebody providing services below 36,800 euros as a micro-entrepreneur or any kind of business, you don't charge VAT unless you decided to go for this. And basically above, that's when you become VAT registered. That's when you ask for a VAT number from the tax office and start charging VAT. And the tax office confirms your VAT number to you. But by default, like Mathilde, when she's a new micro-entrepreneur, then she won't be VAT registered, then she doesn't have one. So question from Ben. Nice to see you, Ben, on YouTube. Say, hey, Valerie, ongoing project, buying a property in Béziers and only planning to stay in it for circa 6 weeks a year. The rent to rent it out for the rest of the year. Current owners only rent it during the high season, circa 23,000 euros, cost 10,000. After taxe d'habitation, taxe foncière, and social charges, it looks like the actual return would be closer to 5,000 euros. Does that sound about right? And is there a business structure that they can look at to protect the returns, knowing we would be looking at above 30,000 euros? Okay, so long question. Holiday rentals. Let me hide. Holiday rentals. Whether we're talking about a gîte, Airbnb, holiday rental, and that you're renting it to temporarily. All the rules around this is going to be changing in 2024. If you were on Insta yesterday, I shared an article from France Info, the French newspaper, radio, and app, where it was saying that they talked about the Airbnb law, where basically the Senate was talking about it today, where they were debating about lowering the turnover threshold for the holiday rental Airbnbs and maybe decreasing the rebate that is available. So a couple of things before I answer to Ben is that for any of you who's thinking about renting their property, professional, non-professional in 2024, there's two things you have to pay attention to, is to keep an eye for those rules so that we know what is the final turnover, but I think it will be voted more like towards the end of the year. And that you probably want to have your gîte classified as meublé tourisme recognized by ACRE France, so you will benefit from the higher turnover or the higher tax rebate. So far, the rule is saying that they're trying to lower the turnover for gîtes, so it'd be more like 77,000 for professionals, and they're trying to lower the automatic tax rebates for the basics regime from 71 to 50. Well, if you want to remain on a higher tax rebate, you have to get classified with ACRE France. But for Ben, when he's talking about that property, is basically there's less than 23,000 euros per year. It's more, so it could be non-professional if he's not living here, but basically there's high running cost and there's a low profit. So the idea is that new law that is coming in is going to try to push people to go towards a more professional setup. And the more professional setup, which is more interesting also for Ben, is called réel simplifié. Réel simplifié. Let me see if I can type it quickly on the chat. So régime, hang on, let me move this. Régime réel simplifié. So I don't have the accents for this one. Régime réel simplifié. So basically, whether you are a professional or non-professional, régime réel simplifié is what will become probably more the norm longer term for gîte owners, Airbnb owners, because with this one, you basically take the turnover, you deduct all your running expenses, and you tax on profit. So it sounds like for Ben, it would be an option. So at least his taxes would be more on the 5,000 euros rather than on the 23,000 euros. And the second thing to look for Ben is to look at whether, because from the description, I wasn't quite sure, it's more like a secondary source of income. So first secondary source of income is non-professional. The law was also talking about lowering this. They made a mess up. For now, they talk about 15,000 rather than 23. I think it will go back to 23. But basically, 23 will be capped for people who are non-professional. If you're above, what would happen is you would be considered professional, but you would go for what I mentioned, that régime réel simplifié, so that your taxes in the end are based on your profit and not your sales. And the difference will be between somebody who's non-professional could still be réel simplifié. They would declare it, have a very simplified loss and profit account with the accountant, and somebody who's a professional on a réel simplifié, the full social charges as a business would be on the profit. So I would say that to Ben, that's probably what it looks like, but I think we'll have to chat a bit more to see what is more like secondary source of income, and definitely keep an eye for that law that is coming for the holiday rental. They talk about Airbnb. In the article that I mentioned in France Info, the Bercy, which is the Bruno Le Maire, who's the Minister for the Economy, he said, well, I'd rather include this in the budget law for 2025. And the budget law for 2025 will be prepared in December, voted December, January. So I think it'll probably be next year before some changes appear. But key thing 2024 is if you are a professional with a gîte or a gîte business, make sure you get your gîte classified this year with ACRE France to get the higher rebates. And if you have a high turnover, then you would go for régime réel simplifié. The good news about this as well, because we were saying, oh, that's going to get complex. Yes, it will get a bit more complex because it will be more like professional, but you still have options. It just means moving to a different regime. And the other thing that I was thinking of just gone, I wanted to say, yeah, what did I want to say? So basically go for réel simplifié. Yes, that's it. That's it. Whatever happens, which is what I was mentioning the last week, I had a chat with Rupert Springfield from Gîte Guru. Whatever you choose this year, do your bookkeeping as if you were going to be under a complex business like Régime Réel Simplifié for your Gîte and Airbnb, which means keep all your invoices, all your receipts, because in France, you can usually backdate and change your regime. So in May 2025, when you file your taxes, you could say tax office, well, actually for 2024, I changed my mind. I don't want to be a micro. I want to be a réel simplifié. And you can, with the help of an accountant who will do the law simplified account. But in order to do so, you will need all those justifications, all those receipts. So I can see Danielle. Hi, Danielle. Thank you for joining. If you have a question, just don't hesitate. I will take them all. Hi, Sneha Sharma on Insta and Tarot by Moko. I'm really bad at reading names. Don't hesitate to ask your questions, anything relating to freelancing, starting a small business, and I will take them all. So that was separate topic, more on the holiday rentals, the gîtes, and so on. The last point I would make on those, for those of you who want to come to France and you're buying a property and you're also applying for a business visa, visa profession libérale, carte de séjour entrepreneur based on your property, be careful what you write in your business plan, because when the law will be passed, you can be sure that people at Ministère de l'Intérieur and REDS will apply the law. So whenever you talk about your business plan, when you talk about your business setup and your taxes, I would tend to say before I would go for micro-entrepreneur. I think in the month to come, I probably would recommend to go for entreprise individuelle, so sole trader, and mention that réel simplifié, which I talked about earlier. So at least they know there won't be any law preventing you from running it as a business and having a high turnover. So longer term, I would say people with chateau, large properties, gîte business and retreats, probably mention entreprise individuelle, réel simplifié to get your visa. Once you're here, we can always change slightly the business setup and adjust it based on what the law will be. So let me see if I go back to my questions. So I think you're getting pretty advanced, all of you, because I'm getting a lot of questions about taxes and visa, quite specific. So it's good to see you doing your research. So I had a complex situation from Phil. So Phil asked the question on YouTube. And basically, Phil says, I recently accepted a rupture conventionnelle from the company I was working for in France. That's where you're an employee, and from a common agreement, you decide to end the contract. I live in France. I have a 6-year left on my carte de séjour. That's really good news. I'm looking for another permanent role. And in the meantime, I'm also want to do some freelancing work. And I already have about 3 projects, which could be about 33K. 2 questions. First one, I haven't enrolled with I haven't applied for the employment benefits yet. Should I do this before I register the business? So let's go for this one. So basically, Phil had a French work contract. You did with the employer, you can decide to end the contract. And in France, we have schemes whereby if you're unemployed, and you want to create a business, we consider it as a way for you to go back to work. And therefore, when you register with France Travail, that's the new name for Pôle emploi, you are entitled to your benefits, and those benefits are also going to be maintained once you create a business. So what's really important for Phil here is to actually so this one is a bit it can be frustrating because you're going to have to follow a specific process and be a bit patient at this stage. But basically, when you have all those rights that you've built up, you have to register with France Travail, activate your rights. As soon as you have a meeting, you tell them, I have this project of starting my own business and going freelancing. So they're going to indicate you in the path of people creating the businesses. And basically, once your unemployment rights are activated, you'll have a choice to either maintain your unemployment right, which is called ARE, aide au retour à l'emploi. Let me see if I wrote that here. Yeah, so ARE, aide au retour à l'emploi, which basically means you create a business, and every month, France Travail will give you part of your allowance as you work. But this one is recommended for people. People who actually, let me just, it's ARE, are recommended for people who actually are going to have a slow start to the activity. So it's probably not the case of Phil, because he mentioned you have about 33K of turnover potentially. It's more from someone starting a business from scratch. Let's say I'm starting as a web designer. I have no customers. I have to start building my network, getting my first people, sign some prospects. I would say in that case, ARE is good, because at least you know every month there's some money coming in. The downside with ARE is that every month you're going to balance. They're going to balance to see, okay, how much came in through your business, so that they give you a lump sum money on your allowance based on what you've cashed in through your business. So it's more complex. So this one, ARE, is from someone starting from scratch, or for instance, someone starting as an agent immobilier, selling houses, and they think that by the time they sell their first property, it could be 6, 8, 9 months before they earn the first commission. Therefore, that works well. And for those who, like Phil, actually, when they leave their work, and they potentially have people waiting for them to start freelancing, I would recommend going for, it's called ARCE, so that's quite funny, but it's ARCE, aide retour, aide retour création d'entreprise, je crois, quand on remember. But basically with this one, it's slightly different. It's the France Travail, Pôle emploi actually assess your overall entitlement, in terms of the rights you built up, and they're going to give you 60% of your unemployment benefits in order to create your business. So basically, with this, you will create your business and then tell them that you've created the business, and they will pay that lump sum money into 2 amounts. So first amount after you created the business, and the second amount you'll have to request 6 months later. So the key thing is, whenever we're talking about this, the key thing to do is, for instance, in Phil's situation, is first of all, you go and speak to France Travail, you mention your project, we work to plan the steps in order to organize the business registration. When you register the business, a key form that you will have to fill in is something called ACRE. Aide au créateur, repreneur d'entreprise. It's a form to fill in to say, okay, I was unemployed, I'm creating my business, I want to benefit from ACRE, which is validated by URSSAF, the body collecting your social charges. Once you have this, you can activate your unemployment rights, the unemployment benefits as a business creator, which is the ARE and the ARCE, the ARCE. So in order to get to keep receiving your unemployment benefits, ARE, or to receive the lump sum called ARCE, you have, big warning, you need absolutely to complete that ACRE form when you register your business and send a copy to URSSAF so they can validate it, and then you will get those out. The second thing you will also benefit from is actually lower social charges as a business creator. When you have ACRE for 1 year, you have lower social charges. So let's say you provide services. I think it would be the case of Phil. If you're providing some services, rather than pay 21%, it would be about 10% for 1 year. So it's all very beneficial in terms of how. And the second question, that was still part of the same question. So Phil says, I heard that if I was to go down the small enterprise route, I could arrange it so that I pay myself in dividends and keep the employment benefits. My benefits could be at the maximum allowed in France for a year. So the situation changes for Phil based on the type of business he's going to go for. So basically, if he goes for micro-entrepreneur, France Travail is going to look every month when you declare to yourself and when you declare to France Travail, you'll have to say how much you've cashed in terms of sales. And France Travail will assume that your business income is 66% of whatever you've cashed in. So then it will say, okay, this is your business income. How close is it to your unemployment allowance? And they give you some money, they give you a bit extra, or they don't give you anything if you had a very good month. So in the situation, Phil, it sounds like because he has those customers coming in, He's more interested to create what we call a SAS, or SASU, S-A-S-U, which is an incorporated business, where he would basically not pay himself a salary and pay himself just dividends. So that is feasible. And in France, there was a big trend basically with Pôle emploi. In the past, SAS, SASU, which is incorporated businesses, they used to be used more for tech companies. And when there was that scheme where you could maintain your unemployment allowance for up to a year, basically loads of entrepreneurs went for the SAS, SASU, not pay themselves any salary and wait for dividends. So it is an option for Phil to do this, provided, so micro entrepreneur, but in that case, go for the ACRE, the ARS, where you have a lump sum money, because once you have a big lump sum money, you don't have to give it back. They don't care how much you make. Or you go for a SASU, don't pay yourself a salary and wait for dividends. But just know that for dividends in France, you won't get them until you have done a full financial year. So we're talking 12 months, and then your accountant does the loss and profit account. So it's more like 12, 14 months before you get your dividends. But that would be the option that could be workable for Phil. I would say the only thing is reading his message. I'm not sure whether the freelancing is more like a short thing, like 3-6 months, or whether he plans to do it longer term. So I would say it's just that when you do a SAS or SASU, this is a proper French incorporated business. So it takes like 2-3 weeks to set up. And when you want to shut it down, you're going to have to shut it down with the accountant. So he has to do a loss and profit account, just count 6 months fully to close it down. Because basically, you have to do the loss and profit account. There's 2 steps for the closure. It takes forever. So probably a good way to keep some money coming in, but not super flexible. So as long as you know that when you create the business, that's okay. Hi, UK parents. Thank you for joining in. If you have some questions, don't hesitate to ask me, and I will take them for the live. The second part of Phil's question. So again, we're talking about someone who was an employee in France. The work contract was ended by mutual agreement, rupture conventionnelle. His second question was, I have not applied yet for, sorry, not this one. I had health insurance for myself and my family with my old employer. And I've been told that I will keep it for another 12 months. Will I lose that as soon as I register the company? So the good news in France is the law is made to protect the employees. So when you are made redundant, or you end your contract by mutual agreement, your existing health cover works for 1 year. So for instance, in the case of Phil, if he was to say, if he was to create a SASU, S-A-S-U, incorporated business, and not be an employee with SASU, basically he would stay on the health cover that he has for now. He wouldn't do anything. It's just after 12 months, if he didn't have any other work contract, he would want to start paying himself a salary in order to activate a health cover in France, which is why the SAS SASU, which is a more complex French business, the choice is really based on your personal situation, because when you do have to pay yourself a salary, it's a French salary, so it becomes more expensive. So we need to have a business where we're making enough money. To me, SASU, we want to be making 110, 120,000 euros for it to be worthwhile. But short term, if Phil wants to be basically doing a SASU, not pay himself a salary, health cover for a year, in a year's time, he would adjust. So either pay himself a salary through his SASU or find another work contract. If Phil went for the option of creating a micro entrepreneur, basically the health cover would be switched automatically. As soon as he creates the micro entrepreneur, his health cover would be switched to the micro entrepreneur, so entrepreneur's health cover. And if he was in the longer term to go for another work contract with a French company, then his health cover would switch again to his employer. So the health cover just follows you depending on what you are doing. So the last question, let me see what was the question that I didn't answer. So Roy, Krista. Had a question from Kansang on Instagram, and he was saying, I want to get a CABIS, which is a business paper for my business. I've tried so many times with INPI, but it's not happening at this stage. So CABIS is the name that we give to the business papers when you have what we call activité artisanale, like a manual activity, you're making things. and when you have activité commerciale, when you're buying to reselling. So it sounds to me, the fact that consign can't go until the end of the business registration is that there are some documents missing. Basically, when it gets stuck or it gets rejected all the time, there are some documents missing. And because he mentioned CABIS, this activité commerciale, and these are a bit more tricky to do because for those, usually you need quite a few attestations or documents to provide. And for instance, you might have mentioned here on the screen, attestation de domiciliation, which is to prove your address, and needs to be a utility bill. When we talk about utility bill, it's got to be gas, water, or electricity. It's got to be less than 3 months old, the exact address. I have a customer where there's just one number missing, and we're stuck because he has to go back to EDF to update the contract because greffe du tribunal won't take it. So it could be an attestation that's missing. Another one is non-condemnation, to a document attestation you sign to say to confirm there's no police record preventing you from running a business. If you run the business from somebody else's address or property, you also need the authorizations. And my guess is that for your business registration, there's one of those documents missing. You can get in touch with me. If you look at my micro entrepreneur registration services, basically I take over this process for you. I have templates of those documents that you can just copy and paste. I tell you what to write on them. And usually I can guess by looking at the record what is missing. Well, I know after years I'm dealing with greffe du tribunal de commerce. They're super, super picky. Your name doesn't match, they don't like it. The address doesn't match, they don't like it. And quite often, even for me, when I prepare the business registration and I see your records, for instance, your passport and your visa and your address, nothing matches. It's like, right, your name and your surname doesn't match. You're called Bill, but your official name is William. You've added your second surname in your name, and it's like a nightmare. And you have to be very careful about those documents because these are the documents that will trigger your health cover. And in France, for the health cover with CPAM, there's a check on your ID. They look at your birth certificate, your passport. The names have to match. Otherwise, we end up in a situation where it's locked. It's locked. They don't tell you what the issue is, but most of the time it's when the name doesn't match, they can't check your ID, and therefore they can't activate your French social security number. And if you don't have a French social security number, they can't activate your health cover. So something to pay attention to. Let me look at the chat. So, hi, Sarah. So let me show you a question. So Sarah says, for a consultant with a turnover of 70,000 euros and 5,000 euros of annual expenses, would Réel Simplifié be less expensive? No, surtout pas. Surtout pas ça, Sarah. That's the worst. It depends what you're doing. Maybe, Sarah, I don't know if you're providing some services or whether, because basically, a consultant, yeah, sorry, you mentioned it. So for you, don't go for Réel Simplifié because this is going to be a murder. Basically, Réel Simplifié, as a business owner, just know that when we talk, I'm just going to lift my head to be about the big title. Réel Simplifié, basically the way that social charges work is that we take your turnover minus your expenses. So here we have 17 minus 5,000, so we have 65,000. And to this, we apply the social charges. And watch out, the social charges under Réel Simplifié is 42%. So everybody's going to back. So you can see that's a huge amount. I don't have my calculator here because I've got the phone on Instagram, but it would be very high. Definitely, to me, Réel Simplifié works where you have high running expenses. So for instance, Ben earlier when he was talking, there was quite a bit of expenses for the property. Fine, but here is very low. And what you have to bear in mind is for a consultant, for instance, like you, if you are to be a micro entrepreneur, what the tax office assumes to be your running expenses, social charges, what they assume to be your expenses, which is social charges plus running expenses, is 34% of your sales. So basically here, if you look at 5 out of 70K, it's not much at all. But if you were to go for micro entrepreneur, they would assume at least 34% of 70K is your expenses, and they would apply the taxes just on what's remaining. So to me, at this level of expenses, micro entrepreneur is best. Personally, I don't really like Réel Simplifié for consultant because most of the consultants usually will work from a laptop. We have very little expenses. And when we move to Réel Simplifié, it's murder. It's like we very highly taxed. We can't claim that much. It works well more for someone. For instance, this week I had a customer. She's doing a private salon and cooking classes and so on. She has high expenses because she has a rent. So when you have a rent, electricity, you have employees and so on, the rest simplifié is great because you can deduct all of those. If your expenses is basically your accountant, your couple of software, a phone from time to time, it's not a great match. I would definitely go for micro entrepreneur for Sarah. Let me see if I have some more questions. And I think I've done. So I had another question from someone on the forum who also moved regions. So I said, my partner is a micro entrepreneur who has been registered and operating since 2017. We will be moving north to a completely different department and region where he intends to continue to run his business. So given that some things can vary from one region to another, I would like your advice as to whether he should do an address change on INPI. So again, great, because it's somebody who's done some research. It's a big fat yes. Make sure, because you've identified the issue yourself. We talked about it a bit earlier. When you change department, when you change region, you're going to be relating to a new URSSAF office, to a new INPO office, to a new CPM office for your hardcover. And basically, if you don't tell them, they will never know. And that's when we land in major trouble. I mean, this year I've had quite a few people who moved houses over 8 months ago, 4 months ago, and last year, never updated their papers. And when we try to update it, it's a bit of a mess because basically they moved 8 months ago and they kept paying taxes to an office which is on the new one. The CRAT number hasn't been updated. It's a bit of a mess. So as soon as you move, use the INPI website to update your information. Just know that when you use INPI, it automatically updates INSEE National Directory for Businesses, URSSAF, INPO for your business. The one you have to do is CPM, your house body. Amélie, go on the online website to update your new address. But definitely do it because long term you land in trouble. It gets very complex. So I'm liking the fact that many of you are doing some research and are getting pretty informed. So these are the topics I wanted to talk about, and let me just have a quick check. If you have any more questions, just ask me. Just know that next week I will be doing a live interview of Alison from Tire to Bridge Tours. Now twice a month I do a live interview of a freelancer, expat freelancer who moved to France and have started a business. And Alison is a guide tour in Paris. She moved here. She moved here quite a few years ago, but she's had a business. She's celebrating a 6th year as a tour guide in Paris. So we're going to be talking about her experience, the Olympic Games coming to Paris. And so this will be live on YouTube next Wednesday at 6 p.m. And so if you want to hear about her story, she comes from California. And I know at that time, I remember with Alison a few years ago, when she started, there was a big mess up with the name and address. And for months, we made some changes. And each time I was saying her name, I thought, no, Alison, again, it's just some more complication on the paperwork. And now, at least, she's just really focusing on her activity, and it's going to be a very busy year for her this year because she's got the Olympic Games, and she's also doing like conciergerie services, so it'd be great fun to talk to her. So these are the questions I wanted to cover with you. So I'll keep the time scale of 1 live Q&A per month, and I will share the next date soon on my YouTube channel, and just indicate a couple of days or a week before on Instagram. So if you have some questions, just send it to me by this YouTube, Instagram, or by email. I will take some of them. So thank you so much for joining. And if you have more personal questions or business questions you want to talk about, don't hesitate to book a power hour with me. You'll find the link in my bio, where basically we have an hour and we talk about all your business setup options, issue, so that you have a clear view of how to run your business and fix the things that may not be working. So thank you so much for joining, and I speak to you soon. Merci. Bonne soirée.